An exciting iPhone 15 Pro upgrade is coming. Apple updates your iPhone. And is Apple making a gaming console?
What's up? I'm Royce, and this is Apple Next, where I talk about all the latest and hottest Apple news of the week. So if that sounds good to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. First up, we got some more information regarding the iPhone 15 Ultra's camera. So I've talked about this new lens coming to the iPhone 15 called the periscope lens that will pretty much drastically reduce the amount of blurriness that you see when you zoom in to take photos. So that's really exciting to hear, and I know a lot of people are going to love to utilize that new feature. The only downside to this is that, at least up until this point, it seems that Apple's going to save this new periscope lens just for their bigger, more expensive phone, the iPhone 15 Ultra or iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is an interesting move for Apple because at least for the past couple of years, both the Pro and Pro Max models of their phones have shared the same features. And hearing that, it could be easily assumed that this is just Apple's way of making us pay more money to get the top tier iPhone. And for the most part, that assumption is right. But it looks like Apple's also making this move because the periscope lens needs a bigger phone model to actually fit. And this realization started swirling around after reports came out that Apple is going to be doing some lens swapping on the iPhone 15 Ultra. Now, the layout itself will look the same, but it looks like in order to fit that periscope lens, they're gonna need to swap the positions of their ultra wide and telephoto cameras. Now, why they need to switch things up from a technical standpoint, I honestly don't know, but the fact that this is only happening for this bigger model and not the regular iPhone 15 Pro shows that there might be some credit to the fact that they literally can't fit this on the smaller iPhone 15 Pro. Now, you could ask the question, okay, well, why not wait until the technology's there to fit this in both the Pro and the bigger Ultra models? If I was Apple, I would say, why not put it in now? Because you can use that to advantage as a marketing scheme to get people to buy the iPhone 15 Ultra. And on the same time, it also kind of acts as like a beta testing phase as well to see how it works, see what needs to be improved on until it's at a point, which I'm sure next year will be introduced in both Pro models, or if it's introduced through even the regular models, the iPhone 16 regulars and then the iPhone 16 Pro and then 16 Ultra or whatever that one's going to be called. Or if this is a situation that can't be fixed for the next gen iPhone 16s, we've already heard that there could be a chance that the 16 Pro and then the 16 Pro Max both could be getting a size increase, and that probably could be to fit this new periscope lens so that both models can have them. So definitely some interesting news, but we'll have to wait until September when Apple officially announces these new iPhone 15s and to see what all the fuss is about. But it's not all bad news for people who are aiming just for the smaller iPhone 15 Pro, as there is this one benefit that should be coming to both the Pro and Ultra models. And it's the most important feature that probably could come to your phone, and that's improved battery life, because both the iPhone 15 Pro and the Ultras will be getting that new A17 Bionic chip, which is the next gen version of the A16 Bionic chip that's in the 14 Pro and Pro Max. And this new chip is a big deal because it's supposed to take in 35% less power consumption, which will result in better battery life in both models. Now, for the regular iPhone 15s, it looks like they're going to be inheriting the A16 Bionic that's in the 14 Pros. So those chips are still going to be really good, and you should still get some really good battery life out of those, but it's looking like the Pro and the Ultra models will benefit the most from having the newer chip. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you excited about potentially getting a better battery life with these Pro models? And what you think about the periscope lens only coming to the iPhone 15 Ultra.
Next up, we got some more leaks regarding Apple's new software update, iOS 17. Looks like Apple's looking to upgrade some features in Wallet, Find My, SharePlay, and AirPlay. And this is good to hear because I feel like those are some features that usually get overlooked a lot. And I've covered in a recent video some of the things we actually can probably expect coming from the Wallet app, simplifying the layout a little bit, adding some more tabs so you're not just scrolling endlessly if you have a lot of cards and passes. What would be smart is to kind of categorize everything, so you just tap on the tab and you can only see the cards or passes that you really care about. And especially now since Apple has that savings account tied to the Apple Card, even if that has its own dedicated section, I think that would be really cool to see. And Apple also wants to improve the location services for its Find My app. Now, what this exactly means, I'm not sure, but from being someone who uses Find My on the regular, especially ever since they released AirTags, I could definitely say there are some improvements that I would like to see, more reliability on finding dedicated devices, especially with devices like AirPods. You know, I know they're not always on, like say your phone or with AirTags, but it would be nice if they can figure out a way for us to still track devices like that, or even like, you know, my laptop or something like that without it having to be connected to the internet in some way, even if it's like an AirTag built into that laptop. They're also trying to bring some improvements to SharePlay. This one's also interesting because I probably maybe used SharePlay once or twice and just to kind of test it out because I thought it was cool during the pandemic. We all tried to watch movies on Zoom and a whole bunch of other different ways, and it just never really worked out the way we wanted it to. And SharePlay was supposed to be implementation through FaceTime that allowed you to share certain content, entertainment, games, things like that. But there were a lot of limitations. Certain apps had to approve for that to work. And, the big apps like Netflix and things like that never really worked with it. So I think that's what really held it back from really reaching its potential. So I don't know if these improvements are going to come with, reaching out to those companies and really trying to embed that experience in more apps so we can enjoy more content together. Or this could just end up being a refinement on their end, just making sure whatever content is working with it right now just runs a little bit smoother. And then lastly, they want to bring some more improvements to AirPlay, which I'm really excited about because I love AirPlay. I use it all the time. And they want to partner in areas like with hotels, like where I'm at, where it's a lot easier to AirPlay your content from your phone to the TV in the hotel. So it's way more compatible, and maybe even reducing the latency of it. So if you're trying to AirPlay, say, a game, which that was like one of the first things I was really excited about when AirPlay was initially announced, like, oh, this could be a really cool way, AirPlay to my TV through the Apple TV to play my games, to kind of give it somewhat of a Switch-like experience. I can play on my phone, then I can AirPlay to my TV to have like the big screen way of playing, but the latency on it is just too bad, and it's just not a good situation. So yeah, to see that they want to improve that even more is really good.
Next up, we got to talk about Apple's latest software update, iOS 16.5, that is available now. And it's been out for a little bit, but let's face it, most of y'all still haven't updated. I know the routine. New update comes out, wait a couple weeks, maybe a month or two before you actually make the jump. And if that's you, honestly, don't worry, because there's really not too much that's happened with this update, but I will break down some of the new things that you can expect. And usually with these like 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, the main thing are usually security and bug fixes, which is the same with this, with 16.5. But there are some new things like the iPhone and Apple Watch getting some Pride Edition 2023 wallpapers, and a new sports tab has been included in the news app that you can see on the iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. And within that section, you can choose which sports and teams you want to follow, keep up with all their news. You can follow along with live scores during games. And if you have an Apple TV 4K, it's been updated to include a multi-view feature when you're viewing live sports in the TV app. But the only sports you can watch right now is the MLS Season Pass or MLB Friday Night Baseball. But you can watch up to 4 streams of different games at the same time. You can even customize the live stream layout to your liking, and I really like how they did it here. The only thing is I would really love to see them expand this feature to maybe other apps or just other forms of content, especially if it's within its own like Apple TV app, right? I know they would have to make special deals, like I'm a basketball guy, so for the NBA, they would have to make some deal with the NBA to allow that. And I know ESPN already has their own multi-view streaming feature as well, but if they can find some way to integrate that straight into the TV app, Apple TV ecosystem, I think that would be really cool to see. And that's about it for the 16.5 update. So like I said, if you haven't updated yet, not really a big deal, but especially for those bugs and security fixes, you might still just want to update sooner rather than later, just in case. Next up, Apple wants to pay you to upgrade your iPhone. We're in this weird time period where we're on the horizon of new iPhones coming out in September, so only a couple months away. But you may be someone who's like, but I just really need to upgrade my iPhone. Maybe you have an older model, it's been run down, it's cracked, everything, it's just time to upgrade. But you're like, should I just wait it out another couple months? Or should I just give in, get an iPhone 14, and then lie to myself when the iPhone 15 comes out and act like I don't care? And it looks like Apple's trying to make that decision a little bit easier by increasing the price you can get back on certain older iPhones through their trade-in program. And yeah, if you're not aware, if you're looking to upgrade to a newer iPhone, you can trade in your older one through Apple. Now, usually you don't get the most amount that you can get if you went and sold it on your own to somebody else. But surprisingly, over the years, they've actually made it a little bit more enticing just to go through them. And depending on the shape of the device, they'll recycle it for you, or they'll refurbish it and resell it through their store. Now this time around, it looks like Apple's really focusing more on their older Pro models and increasing the trade-in value by about $10 or $30. So it's not crazy, but it's still something. And I'll just go down the list here. So for the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you can trade in for $630. The 13 Pro, $530. The 12 Pro Max for $420. 12 Pro for $350, and then the 11 Pro for $240. So obviously the older your phone is, the less you'll get back. And like I said, especially once you get to like the 12 and the 11s, you actually can get a little bit more if you took the time and sold them yourself. But interestingly enough, some phones actually got a price decrease for what you can trade them in for. So for example, my awesome iPhone 13 mini, I can now only get for $330, the 12 mini, $220, and the iPhone SE2, $90. And that's not to say you still can't trade in like your regular iPhone 14s, 13s, 12s, things like that. You can still do that and still get a decent amount back. It's just those didn't get any type of price increase or decrease. And if that's you and you're curious to see how much you can get back for your older iPhone, definitely go to Apple's trade-in website, which I'll have linked down below. And you can trade in your Apple Watch, your Mac, your iPad. So definitely go to the website and check it out and see what you can get back for them. And lastly, is Apple making a gaming console? And I want to immediately say, no, that's crazy. They already tried it. It didn't work out. But I can't deny some really weird and interesting things are happening within the video game space when it comes to Apple. First being their announcement they made a little while ago about 20 new games coming to Apple Arcade, which was good because up until that point, I completely forgot Apple Arcade was a thing. So it looks like they haven't completely given up on that. And those are all games you can download on your phone, iPad, and Apple TV and your Mac. So what's interesting is Apple already has kind of like this combined ecosystem play anywhere system already set up that Microsoft, PlayStation, and Nintendo, which is leading the pack when it comes to that, they're all kind of trying to figure out how to do that. So at last year's WWDC, Apple announced that Resident Evil Village and No Man's Sky, they were getting native Apple Silicon ports. And that was huge to hear at the time because Apple has always fallen so far behind the pack when it comes to games. They're pretty much non-existent when it comes to that ecosystem. At least if you don't count their mobile games. They make billions of dollars off of those. They're making a lot of money off of games, just not AAA games. Now, since then, Resident Evil Village has come out and people have been saying that it actually runs really well. Now, No Man's Sky has been missing in action. We have no idea what happened to that game. And it was a big deal because unlike Resident Evil Village, No Man's Sky was supposed to be coming to the Mac and the iPads that have an M1 chip or the new M2 chip. So that was going to be huge, but we have not heard a single word since it was announced. So I'm assuming this year's WWDC, they're probably going to revisit that. I feel like, because I have a lot of questions. And the reason why I think Apple's going to revisit this whole gaming thing at this year's WWDC, because there have been sightings of legendary Hideo Kojima on the Apple campus, just a few weeks before WWDC is happening. Now, Hideo Kojima is the creator of the classic Metal Gear Solid franchise, along with most recently Death Stranding. So yes, he's kind of a big deal. So why are you at Apple? Because I really don't think this is just some nice leisurely tour that Tim Cook has put together, right? I feel like the biggest reason for him to be there is to prep some type of announcement. Now, what the announcement is could be similar to Resident Evil and No Man's Sky. We could see maybe some Metal Gear Solid ports coming or Death Stranding itself. They're working on Death Stranding 2, so that would be crazy to hear if both 1 and 2 could be coming to the Mac, maybe the iPad, or what could be crazier is if maybe some port is coming to this Apple virtual reality headset. That's just crazy to think about, but at this point, anything is possible at this year's WWDC. And all this just got my mind racing, right? Like, those are kind of like the obvious things we're thinking about. But there is one area that I feel like gets left out a lot, and that is the Apple TV. So when the Apple TV first came out and Apple really started to make this push with Apple Arcade, it got a lot of people thinking like, oh, are they gonna just make some beefed up Apple TV that's like dedicated to gaming? Unfortunately, that never happened. But now that we're in this era of the Apple Silicon chip, the M1, the M2, the upcoming M3 chips, could Apple take advantage of WWDC to announce an Apple TV with an M1 or M2 chip? Because going back to No Man's Sky, the reason why it could be ported to the iPad is because at the time that iPad had an M1 chip. Now there's an iPad with an M2 chip in there, right? So from that logic, putting an M1 chip in an Apple TV would immediately make it compatible with running these games, thus making the Apple video game console we've always wanted. Now picture this. Say Death Stranding is announced at WWDC. You can play it on your TV with an Apple TV. You can play it on your iPad on the go. You can play it on your Mac, on your desk. You can also play it on the go, weirdly, in an Apple VR headset. Can't play it on your phone because those don't have M1 chips and that would be a horrible experience anyway, so that's not a big deal. But utilizing Apple's already built-in Play Anywhere ecosystem that they have, this one move could put them leaps and bounds ahead of all the big video game companies right now. And you guys are probably watching this thinking I'm sounding crazy, because even if that is the case, all right, cool. You got 3 games that you can play on the Mac. Big whoop. And you'd be right. But doing this and having that big of a name and a franchise behind it, I really could see a push happening where more games start to be ported over to the Mac, especially if Apple can show that people really want this. I know I really want this. I've been wanting this for the longest time. But like with all these speculations, we're just gonna have to wait and see what Apple does at WWDC. But whatever happens, if Apple releases that M1, M2 Apple TV, remember, you heard it here first. And that's all the Apple news I got for the day. I'll catch y'all in the next one.